Hey y'all, this video was sponsored by Bite. Bite is an aligner system that allows you to straighten your teeth at home. I talked about Bite in the past, and I'm actually really close to the end of my Bite journey. I think I have like 3 weeks left. I brought out my big Bite box so I could double check. When you sign up for Bite, they send you this big box, which is filled with different accessories and your aligners. I'm gonna pull out my aligner box, and I'm gonna double check how many weeks I have left, because I know I'm almost done. I start week 11 today, so I have 11, 12, and 13, and then I'm all done, all done. I already see such a huge difference in my teeth. It's absolutely insane. I am so happy with the way that my journey is going. My bottom teeth are like 10 times straighter than they were before, and my top teeth I didn't have as many problems with, but my one protruding tooth is not protruding anymore. I'm just so grateful that Bite reached out to me and that they wanted to work with me, because this is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I can finally have a smile to be proud of. I can finally have straight, beautiful teeth again, like I did like 5 years ago when I had my braces. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful because I love my teeth right now, and I can't wait to see what they look like in 3 weeks. If you want to try out Bite, you can use my code. I will have it linked down below. You get the impression kit for $25, and you get $100 off of the aligner system. I highly recommend it. I am so happy with the way that my teeth look. And like I said, I can't wait to see what they look like in 3 weeks when I'm done. So again, I will have that link down below. But now we're going to get into the video, because I am back and I have more Let's Not Meet stories that I'm very scared to read today. I don't even know where I put my phone. I found it. I rambled enough at the beginning, so we're just going to hop right into this. This first story says, The Creepy Baker. In August 2020, I started work at my dream job as a cake decorator at a bakery. I was so shocked and excited to even be considered for the role, so I was excited to hear that I had got the job. When I arrived on my first day, everyone seemed so friendly. It was such a nice change of pace from my last job, but it didn't take long before some strange things started to happen. Every day I would walk into work and greet everyone on my way into the kitchen, and everyone was super friendly except for one guy who was a lot older than me. He would sometimes say good morning, but other days he would just stare at you coldly as you walked past. After a few times of him staring at me and blatantly ignoring my greeting, I felt it was better to just keep my distance. Eventually he started coming into my kitchen to work on something, as I was new and I didn't question it and thought he was just doing his job. He would wait until the other guys weren't looking and would just talk. It wasn't the longest conversations, because he gave me and my other female colleague weird vibes, so we found it difficult to talk to him. Often my colleague and I were the only ones in the building, and one day a week each we were completely alone. One day he came into the kitchen when nobody else was around and asked if we were afraid of spiders. When we said we didn't like them, he brought in this huge spider and started tormenting the poor thing. My colleague and I asked him to stop, at which point he decided he was going to drown it. We asked him to please put it outside, which he did. That was the first of many more incidents. For days he would leave us be, but then he would do something bizarre and frightening, like make jokes about locking us in the freezer or clapping his hands in front of our faces when we weren't expecting it. One day we saw him take 2 huge kitchen knives out of his backpack. He would never speak to us in front of anyone else, and he would always act completely different to the other staff members. One day he came into our kitchen, stood right behind me, and asked, "Are you ticklish?" After days of not speaking, that was the first thing he said, and he didn't say anything else that whole day. A few strange incidents later, he said the same thing to my colleague, and then he started making comments about getting changed in front of us. We made it clear that it wasn't appropriate, but he didn't seem to think so. He would randomly walk or run aggressively towards us while shouting at the top of his lungs. It was like he got a thrill from frightening women. We were so afraid he was going to come in when we were alone that we would lock ourselves in. 2 weeks ago, I went into work as usual and noticed my colleague was shaken up. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that he had come into the kitchen while she was alone, stood right behind her, and asked how the love bites on her bum were. She was confused and asked him to repeat what he said, and sure enough, she heard him right. When she confronted him about it, someone else began walking into the room, and he said, "Oh, it's just something I like to say sometimes." When she told me this, I knew something had to be done. We had been walking on eggshells for months and afraid to walk past him for the fear he would do something, so we reported him to our boss. Surprisingly, after reporting these incidents, he was still going to be allowed to work with us and get off with writing an apology, but thankfully he resigned. Although he is now gone, we're still afraid he's going to turn up when we are alone and do something to hurt us. That is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And I know I say that with every single story, but every story I read is terrifying, okay? I genuinely don't know what I'd do. I'd probably quit. I think I would have quit long before. You guys are brave for staying there. I would have been like, I can't do this. But I have like the worst anxiety when it comes to other human beings, so I would have quit a long time ago. But anyways, this next story says, Creepy Patient Turned Stalker. So I'm a registered nurse, and I work for a company that goes to 50+ hospitals. One night I got a call to do a treatment for a patient around my age. From the second I walked into the room, he was giving me creepy vibes. He wouldn't stop flirting with me, even after I asked him to stop and told him I was in a relationship and have to have my patient sign a consent for me to treat them. And the patient said he wouldn't sign it unless I gave him my number. My response was, "Then I'll leave and you can take your chances with this disease that could kill you." He quickly changed his attitude and told me he would stop. As soon as I hung the blood for treatment, he started again. He asked if I liked kids and if I ever did treatments for kids. I said yes, and they were my favorite patients. He then told me he had a kid and really needed a nice woman to take care of the kid if he dies. Weird. I had to go to another patient after I was done with him. He kept asking me to stay and lied about having a transfusion reaction. I told him he had another nurse to take care of him and I had to leave. He could barely walk, but still got out of bed to try and keep me there. I told him I wouldn't hesitate to call security and then walked out of the room. It gets worse. I have to wear a badge that displays my full name and my company. I tried keeping it flipped over, but he got a glance of it. He found me on Twitter and Instagram. Both are private, but he still requested to follow me and send me messages. I didn't realize this until a few days ago when I had over 50 messages from him. A coworker told me yesterday that someone called claiming to be my boyfriend and said he was trying to get in touch with me and asked me to call a specific number. My boyfriend doesn't have our office number and I had been texting him all day. I called the number from the office phone and it was that patient. I told him he needed to stop or I'd get the police involved. Today I answered my phone, my department. This is my name, how can I help you? It was him again. He said he was in critical condition and needed to request a treatment. I hung up the phone and he called right back. I told my manager about it and they answered the phone the next time it rang and told him to have his doctor call. If he was able to find our number, he can definitely find our office. It's close to where he lives too. I'm honestly terrified. My work can't do anything unless he shows up there because we can't block numbers from our phone system. Pray for me that this man doesn't show up at my work. So creepy patient, let's not meet again. I wonder what makes, I just wonder what makes people do that. Like, what makes people feel so entitled to your time or your attention? Like, that's so crazy. Like, you were there doing your job, and then they feel like you owe them something. I don't know. It's just so crazy. Like, how does their brain work like that? But this next story says, to my weird gym teacher in high school that made me hate class even more. They said, this isn't a stalker story and nothing crazy happens, but it was still an uncomfortable and weird experience my first year into high school. I'm currently going on to my second year of uni, so this happened over 4 years ago. For context, I've always disliked gym class in school. I'm in pretty decent shape, I'm not self-conscious about my physical appearance or anything. I just genuinely did not enjoy playing sports with random classmates. Going into high school, I was required to take grade 10 gym class to graduate. Again, this was my first year at high school, so I didn't know many people or any of the teachers. This is where my story begins. We'll call my teacher Mr. Daniel. Right away, I knew I would dislike the class. Mr. Daniel obsessively emphasized how every sport or game we would play would be full contact, meaning he literally encouraged us to tackle each other and play aggressively. I remember him making some sort of joke in our soccer unit about how we would go for the player, not the ball. We spent a lot of time in the wrestling room, which was padded as it was intended for wrestling. We were meant to have one unit in that room, but we ended up spending like half the class there. In the wrestling room, we would play a lot of tackling games. One specific one, if anyone knows what I'm talking about, is called British Bulldog. So naturally, as new and uncomfortable high school kids, the girls and guys migrated to opposite sides of the room because I'm sure most of us did not want to tackle each other. Mr. Daniel would make jokes and comments about how we were being shy or boring for not mixing with the guys. He would then proceed to play with us. Mr. Daniel would grab me, a 90-pound and 5'2" girl who clearly wasn't excited or eager to play. He did this a lot. He would always play in the wrestling room with us and get frustrated when the boys and girls would separate. That is so creepy. That is beyond creepy. Another thing he did that made my skin crawl was during our dance unit. We had to do partner dances, and one option we were given was to do a flip thing over the guy's shoulder with him kind of holding onto the girl's waist. The guy I was partnered with was a skinny guy, and we did not know each other. We agreed not to do the flip, but Mr. Daniel had other plans. He approached me and told me how tiny my body is and how easy it would be to flip over his shoulders. I awkwardly laughed and just stood there. Mr. Daniel spent like 3 minutes trying to convince me to let him flip me. I almost started crying because I was embarrassed and stressed out. I ended up letting him do it, and he did it like 5 times while saying something like, "See, super easy, nothing to be afraid of, I got you." One last comment that he made that was strange to say the least was during our football unit. He gave us a little story time in which he told us about a young woman throwing a football with a young man at a park. Mr. Daniel then said something to the class like, "Girls, the best way to get a guy is by learning how to be good at football. It's so hot." He then finished his story with how he went to go compliment this young woman on her skills and found out it was a past student. Yet he still somehow decided that was worthy of telling us. After class, he caught me in the hallway and said to me, "Thank you for playing well today. You've got potential," which felt a bit icky after the story he had just told us. So to my weird high school gym teacher, let's not meet again. Oh my God, I would have dropped out of the class in 2 seconds. I would have not been able to handle that. I would have left immediately. I can't remember. I took like racket sports or something like that. Like we played tennis, racquetball, with the whatever, badminton, that game. And so it was never physical contact, but you could have taken team sports, which I'm sure was physical contact. And that's so uncomfortable. I can't do that. And this is the last story I'm gonna read. It says, a man stalked my sister and I on a walk. They said the story might be a bit long because I like to rant on about things, so the story might be longer than it should be, but at least I'm giving you full detail, right? Let's begin. For the first time this year, my sister wanted to go on a walk together, so I agreed and we both took pocket knives and walked out the door. We took a longer route than I usually did. I usually went on walks after school, but I took a short route, and I just got pocket knives. My sister sometimes went on walks when I didn't, and I only go on walks on Monday, Wednesdays, and sometimes Sunday. I usually went around the block, but my sister took a more complicated route. I thought it was going to be a fun walk since it would be different from my normal walk. I knew the area pretty well, so I wasn't scared or anything. We soon got to the trail, and she was earlier talking about a trail that she had usually took. As we got there, we realized a man was sitting on the bench looking at the map of trails. There were only about 4 trails around the area, so it was a bit odd, but we didn't think much of it. We got walking and we were joking around, laughing and telling each other secrets that neither of us knew about each other. All was going awesome. Me and my sister never really got to talk and never really got to catch up with each other's lives, so it was going to be a fun experience. We got about 3/4 of the way down the trail and we saw a coat. If you know what I'm talking about, trails usually have a ditch and then a bit of a wall going along the edges. That's where the coat was, on the edge of a trail wall. It kind of looked like our cousin's coat, so we ran to get it. There were a lot of sticks in our way, so it took us about 10 minutes. We got it and realized it wasn't our cousin's coat, so we left it and we walked on. We continued talking about secrets and all that dumb stuff teenagers usually talk about. Let me tell you, I'm 12 and my sister is 14. This all happened this year. You are 12? Oh my god, you write so well for a 12-year-old. Well, I guess 12-year-olds probably write just fine. But you write better than I do and I'm 26. I'm just like in shock that you're 12 years old. That's crazy. As we got to the end of the trail, my sister nudged my shoulder and when I looked in her eyes, she looked like she had just seen a ghost. I asked her what was wrong in a whisper voice and she said out loud back, "Let's take a selfie." I thought it was a bit odd, but I knew something was up. There was definitely a reason why we needed to take a selfie. I say needed because she really doesn't take a lot of selfies, and when she does, they're just silly pictures. I thought that she needed to take a selfie because usually when you go pale and you act really weird, it's not something to laugh about. You'd think it's pretty damn serious. We take a selfie as we both nervously smile and she puts her hand up in a peace sign, and then I see it. Her index finger was pointing to the man walking behind us. He was only about 15 feet away. We had just gotten off the trail and we had been walking on the trail pretty slow the entire time. And let me remind you, it took us almost 10 minutes to get that coat. Which means if he had been following us from the start of the trail, he would have had to stop and wait for us to start walking again. Recently, we had been watching a lot of crime shows, so we knew that just walking faster would make the situation worse, so we kept at a steady pace. We got to the end of the road, and I didn't know if he was still following us, so I took my hair tie out as if I was going to put it back into a ponytail and then purposely dropped the hair tie. I turned around to pick it up and see if he was still there, and he was. My sister kept on walking, so I quickly jumped back to walk with her. Now we're out of ideas. My sister didn't have a hair tie on her, so she couldn't see if he was following us, but that would have been suspicious anyways. But now the worst part is that he knew we had a phone on us since my sister had needed to take a selfie. He now knew we could call 911. We turned around a corner and started walking down the road. Our feet were starting to hurt because this was a longer walk than it was intended to be. We got halfway down the long stretch of road and just straight up turned around to see if he was still there, and he wasn't. We didn't know if he was still watching us, so we hurried. After the guy had disappeared into thin air, we continued walking home, but it was a fair length away. There was still a short trail we had to take. We got to the trail and held hands as we walked through. Good thing it was a shorter trail. We got to the end and saw a blue car and a white van parked right next to each other. Pretty fucking creepy. We walked around the parking lot at the end of the trail instead of through it. We were pretty freaked out already. We started walking down the road and we didn't get very far before we saw another car pull into the parking spot next to the white van. Guess who got out of the van? The guy who had been following us. My sister and I had no clue how we got there, but apparently he did. We got to the point where they couldn't see us anymore and we sprinted home. We didn't care how long the run was. I have to say that was the first time my adrenaline has ever kicked in. I'm really glad we had our pocket knives with us even if we didn't use them. They would have been very helpful. And I'm really glad my dad has a tracker app on both my sister and I's phones. It's a very complicated story, but what I can say is to the guy that followed me and my sister, let's not ever meet again. And someone said you should invest in some pepper spray if you're able to. Glad you're both safe, and I agree. Pepper spray would have been very handy. Not that anything happened, but if anything more did happen, pepper spray would have been very handy, but your pocket knives were also pretty handy too. The thing with those kinds of stories, it's like, you don't know if anything was gonna happen, but it's still terrifying the thought that something could happen. Because I'm a super paranoid person, so that story sounds like real. Like that guy was going to do something to you. That's how I feel reading that story. But you never know. Like maybe he was just on a hike. But I'm paranoid, so I'm certain that something was gonna happen. I'm certain. Rumble, that is all I'm gonna read for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other stories, sorry you can hear Rumble scratching at my chair in the background, you're just gonna have to ignore it. If you have any other stories that you want to share with me or the community, I will have my subreddit link down below, as well as my email, but please post it on the subreddit instead of the email. Unless you're absolutely unable to post on the subreddit, then you can send it to my email. But my email has also been spammed, spammed the frick up. I've gotten so many spam emails in the last like 2 weeks. It's absolutely insane. So I really can't even like go through the email anymore. So please post it on the subreddit. But other than that, I'm gonna go. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, I also wanted to tell you guys, I'm getting 2 puppies. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of this video, I think because I was rambling about Bite. But yeah, I'm getting 2 puppies. We get them July 28th, I believe. So I will show you guys the puppies when I get them. I've posted, I'll put pictures right here of them. I've posted a lot on my Instagram and on my cat's Instagram. Well, my cat's Instagram is now my dog and cat Instagram. But I posted a lot about them on my Instagram, so if you guys want to go see more pictures, you can go do that. But yeah, we're getting 2 puppies. I was finally convinced. John has wanted a dog for so long. John is such a dog person. And I'm a huge cat person, but I do love dogs. My family has like 13 dogs. So we're actually getting 2 puppies from my family's litter, and we're very, very, very excited. We're very excited to get them. But I'll make an entire video with the 2 puppies when I get them in about a month or about 5 weeks. It'll be about 5 weeks. But okay, yeah, now I'm gonna go. I love y'all. See ya.